The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into UFC Best Bets. And the UFC is returning back to Las Vegas this week with UFC Fight Night card headlined by a light heavyweight fight between Jamal Hill and Thiago Santos. A very important fight at 205 pounds as we try to figure out this 205-pound division still. 2 years later, we're still feeling the departure, I think, of Jon Jones, who is going to assert themselves as the king of this 205-pound division. Right now, it's Yuri Prochazka, and this is a big fight at 205. Again, welcome into UFC Best Bets. We're going to be talking about that fight from a betting perspective, as well as all of the fights on the card. And I am joined, of course, by my partner in crime, Ian Parker, who is not in Las Vegas. He is watching the fights from the Parker estate, as usual, down there in Florida. But he will be paying very close attention to him, and he's got a ton of gambling advice for us. Ian, some quick thoughts on the main event before we take a real quick recap of UFC 277 last week.
I think this is a real interesting matchup for someone in Jamahal Hill who believes he's ready, and it looks like Thiago Santos has become that litmus test for all things prospects. And we're going to find out in this fight if Jamal Hill is ready for that next step, which may lead to Ankalaev. So we'll see.
Man, interesting to be calling Thiago Santos a litmus test. It seems crazy, right? Because he just had that it seems like that close fight with Jon Jones was just yesterday, but we will talk about that fight more. Of course, coming up here. But let's take a real quick look back at Dallas, UFC 277. Man, we've had a couple good weeks, Ian. You had a perfect week there in London, a bounce-back week for us, and then talk to us about what you did in Dallas in 277.
Well, we hit the parlay at plus 226, so that was a great start. Orion Kosi got us started. Dontel Mays, I said was either going to be a gift or a complete trap. It was every bit of a trap. Morano Selmsberger went the distance. Now, Kai Kara France, that loss was not as bad as just a 3-2 record because he was plus 175, so we didn't have to pay the juice. And then the main event, we did the same bet that we did the first time around at over 1.5. We hit it again due to Juliana Pena's toughness. So we had a very strong 3-2, and that parlay at over 2-1 was another solid week, back-to-back weeks of the parlay. I'm looking to make it 3 in a row.
Yeah, baby. And you know what? Remember, last week, it was the first ever and last ever, I think, Okamoto best bet when I did the over of the main event. I'm going to retire on top, Ian, with 1-0 career record. Let's look at this main card here on Saturday. Once again, at the Apex, you can watch it at 10 Eastern on ESPN. And ESPN Plus, the aforementioned Thiago Santos taking on Jamal Hill. Real interesting betting line there. Minus 310 for Jamal Hill. You got Vicente Luque versus Jeff Neal. I think that is a great co-main event. I think many of you would agree with me. You got the heavyweight and flyweight Ultimate Fighter finales. Those are happening on this card. And then a heavyweight bout between Augusto Sakai, Sergey Spivak, and then Ariani Lipsky taking on Priscilla Casuara. So let's take a look at this main event first, Ian. Again, you got Thiago Santos taking on Jamal Hill. And I guess I'm not surprised by the fact that Jamal Hill is a minus 310 favorite. I guess I'm just still trying to get used to this idea that Thiago Santos is not the guy anymore. You know, that he's kind of just this guy to test these younger crop of guys. Is that really, truly how we look at him? And what do you think of this line? Is it a bit too high for Jamal Hill, or are we just really that high on Jamal Hill?
Maybe a little bit of both. I think 3-1 is too high because of level of competition who he's fought compared to who Thiago Santos has fought. And Santos, 3 out of his last 4 losses to top-level competition have been by decision. So it's not like people are putting him away, finishing him. He's all washed up, and he's just a good name to have on a resume. He's still making fights competitive. He is still bringing it. He has still got that same level of power. I just don't know if the mobility is the same after he had that double knee surgery from the Jon Jones fight. But Jamal Hill, I believe, is a true prospect here, but he's got a tremendous opponent in front of him. Thiago Santos, we see that high kick against Bossy. Listen, this is a guy who's still going to come forward. I think he's been fighting a little bit more, let's call it, hesitant in regards to coming forward just because he doesn't want to get taken down. He doesn't like being put on his back. However, he's fighting a fight where he will have someone who's going to oblige in the striking. I think Jamal Hill wants to be in a phone booth. I think Santos wants to be at a distance. So it's going to be very interesting to see who imposes their game plan before the other.
Can you talk to me a little bit about Jamal Hill here? I mean, I do think we're reaching that point in his career where he is taking a step up in competition, right? And because, like I mentioned, 205, it's still kind of wide open. I think it's wide open for guys who can make a statement and can get up there. Maybe Magomed Ankalaev is going to be the guy who grabs a hold of this belt and hangs on to it for a while. We'll see. He's kind of getting that type of hype. But Jamal Hill, I got to be honest with you, Ian. I'm still on the fence about Jamal Hill. Sometimes when I watch his fights, I see things that I think is going to get him in trouble when he takes a step up in competition. I guess this is the fight in which we're going to find out. But again, I know you said 3-1 is a little high. Just talk to me a little bit about Jamal Hill. Personally, I would make me real nervous to take this guy at that big of odds until we see a little bit more from him. But what are you seeing in his development and kind of his projection moving forward?
Well, I think the biggest thing is coming off that Paul Craig loss. Sometimes these younger guys tend to question what got them there instead of learning from it and moving forward. And he did just that. He came back in a big way and he got a really solid knockout in his next fight. And I love that we just showed a highlight of him doing jiu-jitsu, because that would be a tremendously smart move to take the fight to the ground, because Santos is not a threat off his back whatsoever. And if Jamal Hill could do that, listen, that would then show us a different level to his game. We haven't seen him challenge in that way. We haven't seen him try to do that. He's just been relying on his raw power. I do think he's a talented guy. I think he belongs in this position. And if he does win this fight, I'd love to see him fight Ankalaev, and who will test him in all areas of MMA.
Yeah, that would be a super interesting fight. And I will say that he does seem to have that extra gear, that kind of natural gift that can be a difference maker in any division, really. But Jamal Hill, really, when he moves and his quickness, it really jumps off of the screen, at least to me. So let's go ahead and talk to me about what you see unfolding in this fight, and then ultimately, what kind of pick are we making in the main event?
I think this first round is going to go a little bit different than most expect. I think we are going to see this fight go over 1.5 rounds. Can Jamal Hill finish him at some point during the fight? I think a lot of people are leaning that way to avoid paying such heavy juice as 3-1 odds. And listen, to win by finish on -175 is not a bad play. I just think Thiago Santos has changed the way he's fought. He doesn't come forward recklessly. He really keeps his striking at a distance. He avoids damage. And I think Hill is also going to be very weary of the leg kicks and the striking of Santos. So for me, I'm going over 1.5 in the main event.
Okay, over 1.5 in the main event. Let's go to the co-main event. It is a good one, the welterweight fight between Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal. For me, I think this is the most interesting and maybe the most difficult one to bet on the card, because I think obviously with Luque, he was a -180 favorite against Belal Muhammad, and well, that did not go his way at all. But this guy has still won 10 of his last 12. You expect him, young guy, hungry guy, to come back hard from a loss. I expect him to look good in this fight. And then you got Jeff Neal, who actually has a win over Belal Muhammad earlier in his career. And I just don't know what to do with Jeff Neal's. I mean, he had those back-to-back losses against Stephen Thompson and Neil Magny, but that was when he was coming off of a weird health situation in which this guy spent a lot of time in the hospital, and he just didn't really look like himself. He's gotten back on track with a win since then. Luque is a -180 favorite, which I think is about right based on what they've done and what they've done recently. But I don't know what to do with this fight, man. I really, really do not. I hope you do. What are we doing with this co-main event?
Well, that's why you got me here, to help you out in that situation, because I like Luque here. For me, Luque in that fight against Belal Muhammad, we took Belal, and what did we say? It was more about a stylistic matchup for him that didn't favor him because of Bilal's cardio, the constant pressure, and he wouldn't engage in a brawl. Jeff Neal's not that fighter. He's not coming forward. He's not threatening with the wrestling. He's not out putting a pace that's going to confuse Luque. I think Luque is the better technical striker here. I think if he uses his ground game, his jiu-jitsu is phenomenal. We just don't always see it because, as we see in the graphic here, he loves to strike. He loves to knock people out. But he's got incredible jiu-jitsu. We've seen it against Michael Chiesa, where he was in a bad position. He overcame it, got the sub there. I like Luque here. I think the experience level competition, I think he's just got more ways to win. So we're going to go with the favorite in this one.
Okay. It looks on paper, and I know that a lot of people reacted on social media, like, what we call them, a banger. It looks like a banger of a fight, and it looks like a fight where both guys can knock each other's lights out at any moment. Is that kind of the fight that you see, or do you feel like maybe even you want to sprinkle something on a Luque submission because he might look to take the fight to the ground?
That I don't mind doing. I don't see Neal knocking him out. We've seen Luque getting some wars. He's got a really good chin. But I think, to your point, Luque, listen, path of least resistance, get the fight to the floor.
All right, let's move to this tough finale. It's got a very familiar name on one side of it. Muhammad Usman, the younger brother of course, the welterweight champion Kamaru Usman, taking on my guy, Ian, I got to say, Zach Pauga, who I love because we share an alma mater. He went to Colorado State. I went to Colorado State. This guy was in the NFL. He had a cup of coffee with the Houston Texans, so it tells you what kind of athlete he is. And the odds, look at that, they reflect that. Minus 260. He got into MMA a little bit later in life, but again, an A-plus athlete going against Muhammad Usman, plus 210. A lot of people probably look at that name Usman and say, hey, is this an opportunity for me to jump on an underdog? What do you think about this line?
I say don't be fooled by that last name. I saw what he did in the PFL. I see what he done in the Ultimate Fighter. And I just don't see. Listen, I think Usman's got time to develop, but I think Puga is just better everywhere in this fight. I think this fight goes over 2.5 rounds. Puga's one finish, one decision. Before that, 4 of his fights were decision for Usman. Most of his fights, the last 2 in the Ultimate Fighter were by decision. When he lost to Matt Sales, it was later. I'm sorry, Brendan Sales, it was later in the fight as well. So I think you got 2 guys who carry power, also got pretty decent chins, good athleticism. Look, if Usman can do what he's doing in this highlight and wrestle, use the clinch, that's his way to possibly scare Puga a little bit. But I don't see that happening. I like over 2.5 rounds in this heavyweight finale.
Okay, it always feels a little dangerous taking the over of a heavyweight fight until you actually start to see those guys start to get tired, wrestle on each other, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a breeze. I'm going to sail over 2.5. Hopefully that'll happen with this play. Let's move to the 125-pound tough finale. Juliana Miller taking on Brogan Walker. I've heard a lot of good things about Juliana Miller even after she left the show. That the coaches were encouraged by her work ethic, that she was a really great learner. Taking on Brogan Walker, she is a small favorite. Miller is at minus 120. Walker coming in basically at even money, plus 100. What do we think of this one?
You know what? For this fight, this is for me a no-touch fight in regards to betting one side or the other. Both of them, not a ton of experience. One's more of a submission threat. The other one's a little bit more well-rounded everywhere. So I'm going to get a little creative, Brett. A few weeks ago when we had the Volkanovski Max Holloway card, remember what we did? Both guys, same unit, by decision. I'm going to do the exact same thing here because I don't think anyone's finishing this fight. So I'm going to say put the same unit on each one of them to win by decision. So as long as it wins by decision, you will profit in this fight.
Hey, there's my guy Ian using his head. See, betting kind of outside the box. As long as this fight goes 3 rounds, and then you're getting the best odds on both of them. Not by taking it to go the distance, but by taking each of them by decision. Very, very heady play there by Ian Parker. All right, let's go back to the heavyweight division. You got Augusto Sakai against Sergey Spivak, which, Ian, it looked like it was going to happen for our guy Augusto Sakai there in the beginning. He was 4-0 in the UFC. Since then, 0-3 with 3 straight finishes. And the odds makers have kind of bailed on Augusto Sakai. He is plus 220. Spivak coming back at minus 270. Do you see a path to victory for Sakai, who you got to think back against the wall? He really needs a victory, but is Spivak just too much here?
You know what? I don't like when a guy's coming off 3 losses, let alone 3 finishes, against Tai Tuivasa. That was a brutal one. And, we did see Spivak lose to Tom Aspinall, but I'm going to say no shame in that. What I've seen in Spivak's game, training with Eric Nissick at Extreme Couture, great move. He does have the ability to wrestle. We've seen him fight on the ground against guys that have better ground games than Sakai, which I think is going to be the path to victory here. Personally, I like Spivak to win by either TKO, KO, or sub. You'll get that at really good odds. I think Spivak does win this fight, so if you want to throw him in a parlay, I just think Sakai's time has come, and I think Spivak has the tools to win this fight.
Okay, so we're taking Spivak there on the main card. Let's wrap up the main card, going back to the flyweight division, the female flyweight division. Ariani Lipsky taking on Priscilla Casuara. Lipsky came in. I think the UFC was looking at her as possibly someone who could gain some traction with the fans. The queen of violence, a lot of finishes, a very entertaining fight style there with Lipsky. But she has kind of been up and down so far in the octagon. 3-4 in the UFC. She is a favorite here against Casuara, an opportunity for her to get a win. Does she get it done here against Priscilla Casuara?
You know what? It's a tough fight. And what we've seen out of Ariani Lipsky, yes, she's got the Queen of Violence nickname, and it's great, and she really goes for it. But if she doesn't get that submission and the fight stays on the feet, she kind of loses. We've seen that. She's lost a few decisions. She's been finished. And Zombie Girl is every bit of her nickname. She comes forward. She strikes. She can keep this fight standing. But I don't see her finishing Lipsky too early. I think this fight goes over 2.5 rounds. I think her defensive jiu-jitsu skills are good enough. So we're going to go over 2.5 here. A lot of the women's fights at this level tend to go that way. We're getting pretty decent odds. They keep going up a little bit. So jump in now if you like this play. But for me, I think Zombie Girl stays away from the submission loss, and we're going to see this probably go the distance.
What a heck of a matchup in terms of nicknames. Queen of Violence versus Zombie Girl. How can you not
Yeah,
turn on ESPN and ESPN Plus to watch
yeah.
that fight? Okay, so that wraps up the main card. Let's move on to the prelims, Ian. And this is where I just get out of your way. You can go through the prelims. Tell us which way you're leaning on every single one of these prelim fights.
Well, Sam Alvey, I believe this is his last one, win or lose. I don't think this fight goes the distance. Lord Michael is a tough striker, keeps getting better. This is not going 3 rounds. Terrence McKinney, flying under the radar on this card. Get him to win by KO or TKO at plus 120. I'll take that all day. I like Brian Battle here at minus 270. It's a little high to take straight, so if you want to throw him in a parlay, fight IQ. With Sato, he either knocks you out or gets submitted. I think Battle's IQ will help him there. Kinlan versus Witt. I think for Witt, this is just going to be seasoned veteran experience to let this fight go deeper into the rounds against a very tough knockout guy in Kinlan. So I'm going to take a shot at over 1.5. Corey McKenna against Granger. Granger's coming off a couple of losses. McKenna a loss, but has the wrestling and ground game to make this a grinder. I like her by decision. And last but not least, I'm going to go with Silva as the underdog over Egger. I think she's fought better competition. Plus, she looked really solid in her last fight. And if Egger can't get that judo throw, I don't think she wins anywhere else. So at plus odds, we're going to go with Silva right there.
Okay, so a little bit of some wide odds there on those prelims. You were talking about McKenna, you're talking about Brian Battle, Terrence McKinney. So that tees us up perfectly for your prelim, which we've hit twice in a row now, 2 weeks in a row. Last week was plus 226, so you got to love that payout. Keep us hot, Ian. Where are we going on the parlay, the Parker parlay this Saturday?
All right, so this one's going to be a lot of fun here. We're going to start off with the main event to go. Start off at round 2. Like I said, I think there's going to be some hesitancy there. We are going to take Jamal Hill to win this fight. We're going to also go with Spivak and Terrence McKinney. So those odds are getting at plus 193. I'm a fan. I don't really see where we missed there. Maybe Jamal Hill. I hope not. But at these odds, at almost 2-1, we're going to go with that 4-leg parlay right there. Now, Brett, we have a special different parlay this week I'm going to throw in there. Instead of a long shot prop, because I really couldn't find anything that stuck out, we're going to go with a long shot parlay here, all at plus odds. Main event to end by unanimous decision. Doesn't matter which side it is, as long as one of them get it done. I'm going to go Zombie Girl money line. Terrence McKinney by TKO or KO. And I'm going to go with Battle or Sato to end in under 2.5 rounds. Like I mentioned earlier, and I'll say it again. For Sato, if he doesn't knock you out, he's been getting submitted in those fights, those last 3 losses, at plus over 2,000. That's going to be our long shot parlay.
Just when I think you can't find any more ways to bet a UFC fight card, man, then you've come up with a long shot parlay that pays over 20-1 odds. I mean, that is Ian Parker. Just cut this segment and roll it into our preview show or our promo package whenever we talk about this show, because that is Ian Parker right there, finding us a long shot parlay at 20-1. Okay, let's move on to the best bets, which you went 3-2 last week. You've been doing well on the best bets the last 2 weeks. Let's keep it rolling. What do you got for Saturday?
So we're going to start off. I am going to throw Mayra Bueno Silva in at plus 115. I think she can keep this fight standing where I believe she's the better striker. I think she has fought better competition. And on the ground, she's no slouch. So I like her at plus odds there. I am going to also go Corey McKenna by decision. I think Rachel will have no answers for her on the ground. So let's go with that one. Spivak, this is a fun one by KO, TKO, or sub, minus 115. Luque, I'm big on this fight. I really think he gets it done over Neal. And then last but not least, the main event. We're going to keep this trend going like last week to this week, over 1.5. And that's going to be all of our best bets, Brett. Let's have another good week.
Let's have another good week, man. I love it when our best bets are real tight odds. You had like a minus 115 in there, minus 110. I mean, if we get hot and you hit these, it's going to be a nice payout, especially if we hit the long shot parlay, the Ian Parker first ever long shot parlay of what is it, 27-1. Let's go ahead and hit all of those. A perfect week. That's what we're always looking for here on UFC Best Bets. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Hopefully you learned a little bit and enjoy the card this weekend. I like that main event. I like the co-main event. Big time fight in the welterweight division and in 205. So enjoy it, and we will see you at the next one. Take care.